Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So in the last session, I discussed two of the three important elements of the science of Ruqya, which are, shall I say, the Ruqya reactions which you get during the Ruqya, as well as the intention, which allows us to control the recitation of the Quran, as well as allowing us to hit the intended target without it touching anything else, any other spiritual ailments, in the same person, whilst not allowing the reactions to spill over onto other spiritual diseases. In this session, I hope to give you some visual examples of it all, inshallah. Now, diagram 1, I'll just read it out first and then I'll show it to you, inshallah. Having established the evidence for both Ruqya diagnosis and Ruqya reactions, I will now present illustrative drawings to demonstrate practical examples of how these reactions should be utilized, as well as to illustrate the methods commonly employed by most Raqis. So hopefully by the end of this session, you will understand how this all works, and you will be convinced, inshallah, that the Ruqya reactions are from Allah, and they allow us to extract information from the diagnosis which is 100% accurate, inshallah. I hope that after presenting these diagrams, you will see how Ruqya reactions clearly from Allah provide 100% accurate results. Alhamdulillah. Let's begin with diagram 1. The difficulty I faced during the initial stages of my journey was due to several factors. Many Raqis, likely due to their inability to perform accurate Ruqya diagnosis, chose to focus solely on Ruqya treatment, avoiding diagnosis altogether. This approach is not only distant from the Sunnah, but also fraught with numerous flaws, as detailed in the chapter, The Importance of Ruqya Diagnosis. Here I'm referencing the previous chapter of this book, where I go into the details of the Ruqya diagnosis, the evidences, and to prove that it is indeed closer to the Sunnah than those Raqis who just employ Ruqya treatment. Additionally, some Raqis conflated diagnosis with treatment by reciting with the intention of performing Ruqya treatment while observing the patient's reactions. Unfortunately, this method is widespread among Raqis and is highly ineffective. The problem lies in the general intention behind the Ruqya, which causes all spiritual ailments to react. This makes it challenging to pinpoint the exact affliction the patient is suffering from. For years, I struggled with this issue, and all that was needed was a precise manipulation of the intention to accurately identify my problem. It wasn't until I encountered the method taught by Ustad Saeed Abdullah that I was able to isolate and diagnose each spiritual ailment effectively. Once a general diagnosis is conducted for a specific spiritual disease, it is then possible to delve deeper and investigate that particular affliction further. So in this diagram, what's happening is, let's assume that this is one person, and the Raqi here is performing Ruqya. However, because he's not using, whether he's doing it with the intention of just treatment, which is a flawed approach anyway, because treatment, Ruqya, does not produce as much reactions as Ruqya diagnosis does, because in Ruqya diagnosis you are specifically asking Allah to show you what is wrong with you. But even if it is done with diagnostic intentions, the issue is that many of these Raqis just do Ruqya with just general intentions, and it just ends up hitting all of the spiritual diseases, causing them all to respond. And this is problematic, because when every spiritual disease starts responding to the Ruqya, it starts reacting, it leaves a patient in confusion because now they're unaware as to or confused as to what is the actual issue that they're suffering from. And I hope that's clear, because yeah, and this is the issue I was dealing with. As I believe I mentioned it in my last video. I was going from Raqi to Raqi, and this is what they were doing. I was afflicted with all four of these spiritual diseases, and I was getting misdiagnosed left, right, and centre. One Raqi was saying you have sihr, another one was saying it's a sihr jinn that has become an ashik jinn. I mean, I don't even understand how they were coming to these kind of conclusions. It was as though they were making it up as they were going along, and it was a very frustrating situation at the time, because I could feel their uncertainty, and I just felt like it was a blind leading the blind, unfortunately. But I couldn't do anything about it because I was even less experienced than they were, so I had to rely on their judgment. So this was a very testing time for me, subhanallah. But I never gave up. I knew that if Allah is giving us Ruqya reactions, meaning when Ruqya is being recited upon us, why is our body reacting the way it does? Why am I getting muscle spasms? Why am I almost passing out or almost puking up? And that's something that Rakis could not really tell me. They knew that it was something to do with a spiritual disease, since it was caused by the recitation of the Ruqya. However, they could not with certainty tell me what was the matter. Now, moving on to this diagram, it's very similar to the above diagram. As illustrated in diagram 2, this patient is grappling with multiple spiritual ailments. The Raqi is reciting Ruqya diagnosis without clearly specifying which ailment he aims to diagnose, resulting in a reaction from all the afflictions. Consequently, the patient cannot discern whether the invasive thoughts about divorcing his wife stem from natural whispers of the Qareen, Shaitan, or are influenced by a possessing sihr jinn. He cannot ascertain whether his physical health issues stem from Ain, another spiritual ailment such as jinn possession, or simply a physical condition. If the diagnosis in this case indicates a spiritual cause, the patient may need to proceed with advanced Ruqya diagnosis to identify the source of the Ain. Following this, obtaining ghusl water from the individual responsible and using it for bathing as prescribed by the Sunnah may be necessary to gain shifa. I aim to underscore the critical importance of accurate diagnosis in Ruqya. An accurate diagnosis not only accelerates effective treatment, but also prevents serious health complications, disruptions to family harmony, and potentially grave outcomes such as death. Misdiagnosis, on the other hand, can lead to significant adverse effects, including worsening health issues, family breakdowns, and even severe consequences. This lack of specificity in the intentions during Ruqya diagnosis can cause serious issues, as vague or inaccurate diagnoses often stem from guesswork. It is regrettable that while it is indeed possible to determine if physical ailments are related to spiritual diseases, a Raqi who struggles with diagnosing spiritual issues is unlikely to make this connection effectively. Regrettably, this lack of precision also extends to Ruqya treatment, where many Raqis fail to clarify their intentions. How can they be precise when they do not even understand the exact nature of the patient's suffering? Our experience shows that the more specific one is with the Ruqya treatment intentions, the more powerful and effective the treatment becomes. And that actually applies to diagnosis as well, it's not just for treatment. the more specific you are, the more powerful the ruqya is, the more intense it is. And in this diagram, what you see is very similar to the last. It's actually the same as the last diagram, only I've drawn a box around the spiritual diseases, which represent the suffering victim. And in this case, literally the same, as you can see, there's the ruqya is going towards this individual, but as soon as it hits him, the ruqya recitation is out of control. It's hitting everything. The sihr, the ayn, the waswas conditioning, the mas, it's hitting everything. And some will turn around and say, well, brother, akhi, just do your treatment and everything will be okay. But it's not that simple sometimes. Sometimes you need to know if it is sihr, which allows us to then do advanced diagnosis to find out who the perpetrator is. And then this allows us to take preventative measures in the future with regards to which house you're eating in, and all other kinds of things, So it is important to do the ruqya diagnosis. It is only in rare circumstances do we advise people to just stick to treatment. But for everyone else, we advise you do your diagnosis. And that is the best approach. And the people I see that stick to ruqya treatment without good reason, they just continue to suffer. They're just going around in circles because they don't know what the root cause is. If the root cause is evil eye and you know who's giving it to you, you need to find out why they're giving it to you. If it's because of your beauty or if it's because of your hair, you might need to hide your hair around them. Wear a hat. I'm just giving you an example. There's a whole list of reasons why it is beneficial to do ruqya diagnosis, which I have mentioned in my previous chapter. I've not actually gone through that chapter as in the form of videos. Inshallah, I will do so. Now in this diagram, number 3, after years of dealing with Raqis who could not perform accurate diagnoses, I finally discovered a method that isolates spiritual diseases through the intention, resulting in 100% accurate diagnoses. In diagram 3, the Raqi is performing a general diagnosis for sihr. I use the term general because this approach does not delve into the specifics of the spiritual disease, such as identifying the various types of sihr affecting the individual. What stands out is how the ruqya is precisely guided by the intention. The intention then acts as a barrier in ensuring the ruqya targets only the intended spiritual disease without affecting others. Moreover, the intention not only directs the ruqya recitation but also encapsulates the targeted spiritual affliction, preventing the ruqya reactions from spilling over onto other spiritual diseases. Now let's have a look at this. I'd like to apologize if there's any noise in the background. I'm living in a house full of a lot of people, so apologies in advance if anything kicks off. Right, moving forward swiftly from that. So what you see here is you've got this Raqi specifically doing a ruqya diagnosis for sihr. So the main thing here is the intention. He could be saying Bismillah. So his form of ruqya here is just saying Bismillah. It doesn't have to be the Quran. But whatever he's reciting, that could be classed as an acceptable form of ruqya. It is being guided by these. I've done it in this. I've done these red lines to a sort of represent the intention, but those red lines are sort of carrying the recitation to the intended target, whilst encapsulating it in a way that it does not start striking other spiritual diseases, which would then cause them to react. So that's the benefit of this. Furthermore, when this recitation hits this spiritual disease, it encapsulates encapsulates the reactions as well, not allowing them to spill over onto other spiritual diseases. When I first came across this method, I was totally blown away. I was so grateful, and I learned this from Ustad Saeed Abdullah. Check his works out. You know, it literally changed my life, and I had like that moment, like that sort of, what did you say, like the eureka moment. Like, this is it. This is what I was looking for. You know, and but little did I know the depth at which we can take this. This is just a basic diagnosis we're doing here for the spiritual diseases. But you can really go much more advanced into it. But seriously, I was so impressed when I first came across this. I could not believe that it was something as simple as the intention that was required in doing this. Now, obviously, with experience, you will realize when you do react to all of them, and you've confirmed this, because the Ruqya diagnosis is accurate, but it's consistent. So if you react to Ayn, you will always react to it until you get rid of it, inshallah. But you'll find how beautifully it works. So once you get rid of, let's say, Ayn, but you've still got Mas, which is possession, and you got waswas conditioning, but you got rid of this, you will never react to this again. And as soon as you change your intention, so let's say I'm reciting for sihr, I'll feel my body just start contracting all by itself. Even before the physical movements begin, I could feel a shift within me. I could feel something brewing, and then that escalates into my limbs tensing up, and then they start shaking. Scientifically, logically speaking, you cannot explain this. This is from Allah, and it's a gift. It is proof of the Quran being the word of Allah. You know, subhanallah, it's on another level. It's an iman booster. Now, if I was to switch my my intention to Ayn, instantly what would happen is, even if I don't stop my recitation, I just switch my intention, my reaction would just completely stop. Pretty much instantly in my case. When I do it, and on many of my patients, they would instantly stop. If I was to return my intention back to checking for sihr, again my body would go back to that state of like those escalating reactions, and eventually I'm having these violent muscle spasms. Again, I cannot explain how amazing this is, and I'm just showing you this on a smaller scale. When I start showing you other examples, you're going to be blown away. And literally, I have done sujood al-shukr during my Ruqya diagnosis sessions, because I am so grateful to Allah that He has given us this gift. It's like having a superpower. Wallahi, it is like having a superpower. And I want to show you some other examples where the results are more tangible, meaning I'll get there, inshallah. I'll just take you there one step at a time, inshallah. Now, in this case, what's happening is, I'll explain, I'll just read this out, inshallah. By carefully manipulating the intention, we can delve deeper into spiritual ailments to extract more specific information. For instance, we can determine the type of sihr affecting an individual, which allows us to take appropriate precautions. If someone is suffering from sihr of divorce, they can be mindful and control their emotions around their spouse. Similarly, if someone is afflicted by Ayn, they can use Ruqya diagnosis to identify the perpetrator and obtain ghusl water from them for treatment. The potential applications of specific Ruqya diagnosis are numerous, but I will outline a few common scenarios here, inshallah. In diagram 4, the Raqi is diagnosing someone afflicted with various types of basically jinn possession. However, his focus in this case is to gather information about the sihr jinn, and just the sihr jinn. By using specific intentions and Ruqya recitation, the Raqi can precisely target only the sihr jinn without affecting any other jinn in the body. Observe how the Ruqya bypasses all other possessing jinns and directly seeks out the sihr jinn. There are many ways to confirm that only the sihr jinns are being targeted. One method is by analyzing the results of the Ruqya diagnosis, which will always be consistent. For example, you can determine exactly how many jinns are possessing you and identify which of them are sihr jinns. Once you've eliminated the sihr jinns, only the non-sihr jinns will continue to react to your Ruqya diagnosis, as the sihr jinns have been destroyed and removed. The consistent results of Ruqya diagnosis further validate its accuracy and efficacy. Continue reading this article to witness the remarkable precision of this Ruqya diagnosis. Walhamdulillah. Not only can we investigate information about sihr jinns, but we can also determine the gender of the jinn, which can influence our thoughts and behaviors. Additionally, we can precisely identify which jinn is possessing us, whether it's one that has entered before or a completely new entity. It is that specific. In the past, Rakis would command a jinn to leave, only to have another voice emerge from the patient claiming to be a different jinn. Our method of diagnosis eliminates the need to communicate with the jinn directly, while still allowing us to discern if a different jinn has indeed entered a person. Now here's a diagram. The intention is containing the Ruqya, ensuring that it does not hit anything except the intended target. As you can see, a squatter jinn, for those that you're wondering, are just a jinns that they just find it easy to possess you. They might find you interesting. They might find it interesting just living inside your body, the things you watch and all sorts. But these jinns are really quite easy to get rid of, to be honest. I mean, the methods I'll be showing you, inshallah, they have proven extremely effective in removing and killing the most stubborn of jinns, literally sometime within seconds. So don't worry about that. Another thing I'm going to mention here, subhanAllah, I still come across some Rakis teaching the methods that I was learning like 12 years ago, and they are so incorrect. I don't know, sometimes I ask myself, is it even worth approaching them? Because people get very defensive. When I was learning this science, I was very open-minded. If someone approached me and said, Akhi, if you're doing this wrong, take a look at this approach. No, I'll be more than open. This is how I learned this, because I was open-minded. Now I came across someone teaching Ruqya, and I believe it was a post from was it yesterday or a couple of days ago, and they were saying that it can take up to 4 hours for a possessing jinn to manifest. This is ridiculous. Our Ruqya, from experience, we know that if you perform a Ruqya diagnosis for 30 minutes and you're not a sinful Muslim, meaning you're not someone that is constantly falling into sins, or you're doing minor sins recklessly, your diagnosis will be strong. I'm telling you, the jinns cannot hide from it, because you're asking Allah to show you if you're suffering from jinn possession. Are you telling me Allah, it is difficult for Allah to expose these jinns? Let me tell you, 30 minutes is enough for them to be exposed. And that's like, in my case, alhamdulillah, they normally get exposed within maximum, like in recent cases I've had, within 5 minutes. And it's not uncommon for me to start reacting within seconds. So that's something you need to get out of your head. Like, that the jinn, you need to recite for hours and hours before it shows itself. No, that is incorrect. That is misguidance. That's gonna send you down a rabbit hole. I remember forcefully, I have to be honest, I'm guilty of this. I remember forcefully sitting down with family members and reading upon them for hours upon hours. I mean, my stamina for Ruqya is on another level. I mean, the most I've recited is like 12 hours in one day. I split it up into chunks, like 6 hours or 5 hours, 4 hours, 3 hours. That's how I broke it down. But the point is, I can go on forever. And I was following the methods taught by these Iraqis, that, you need to wait for this. So this individual that I was dealing with, they were getting minor reactions. so their foot would just twitch. It would be enough to be classed as a reaction. However, I was taught this is because the jinn is strong, and when the jinn gets weak, it will speak. And then you need to escalate the ruqya for hours and hours before it manifests, and then you can get all this information out of it. That is so ridiculous. When I look back at it now, I don't know whether to laugh or to cry. Honestly, wallahi, it's really upsetting when I look back that this is being taught. Guys, if you're a fellow Raqi listening to this, from the bottom of my heart, I'm telling you as a brother, that is incorrect. You don't need that long to perform Ruqya diagnosis to diagnose yourself with jinns. Yeah, it's a different story. If you're not sure about your 30-minute Ruqya diagnosis, do it multiple times. But let me tell you, a jinn cannot hide during the Ruqya diagnosis, because we are specifically asking Allah to show us, and He will show you through the Ruqya reactions. Now in this case, what we're doing is, as you can see, the Ruqya has been contained by the intention, which bypasses all these other jinns, and it just hits the sihr jinn. Now you're probably thinking, what is a squatter sihr jinn? It's a valid question. Well, I'm not really going to go into too much details at this point, but because I've come across so many cases at this point that some magicians would place sihr jinns inside people, meaning for the person, the victim who has the sihr jinn inside of him, it's not for him. He's not the intended target. So when he performs a Ruqya diagnosis, he will react to general jinn possession. But if he was to do a specific diagnosis for a sihr jinn, he won't react, because the purpose of that jinn inside of him is not sihr. It's only been placed there to do sihr on other people, like maybe other family members. This is how sneaky these magicians are, and we have this information now because of the Ruqya diagnosis. Inshallah, I'm going to show you how you can identify every important element of the sihr network, even the location, if it's beneficial. I will teach you how to do it. Believe me, it's these magicians, they were, we had their heads spinning, because they were thinking, how are these Muslimin extracting all this information? Like, we know they don't work with jinns because they believe that is shirk. How are they doing it? And I have to say, like, literally my heart just, I still get that mushy feeling in my heart, because like I said, this is a gift from Allah to us, these Ruqya diagnoses. Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. So what's happened here is, guys, sorry, I go off on a bit of a tangent, but I'm passionate about this. Again, same thing. The reactions will be contained to just a sihr jinn. It will not hit anything else. It won't touch anything else. And like I said previously, you will know that it is just the sihr jinn you're dealing with, because the results will be consistent. They will be, you won't get inconsistent results. And once you eliminate the sihr jinns, you will no longer react to sihr jinns ever, unless you get repossessed. However, you'll react to all of these still. I hope that's clear, inshallah. But this is amazing. This was a revelation in and of itself back then, when I was at a stage when we couldn't even, during my stage 1 in my journey, we couldn't even differentiate between ayn and sihr. Never mind trying to discover the types of jinns you have inside of you. And you have to keep in mind, none of this diagnosis should be trivial. So we're not going to ask Allah, what is the colour of this jinn? What's his favourite food? Unless it's affecting you, because you might find sometimes a jinn may enter you and you'll get a craving towards certain foods out of nowhere, something you've never really enjoyed previously, maybe even. Another thing to keep in mind is jinns, shayateen, we found, possessing jinns, they like us to have a lot of sugar. We don't know the exact reason. Maybe it's because when we're high on sugar, we're more easily manipulated. We're more easily controlled. Yeah, so going on to the next diagram, inshallah. In diagram 5, the Raqi is treating a patient suffering from both sihr and Ain, each accompanied by their respective possessing jinns. Yes, both Sihr and Ain can potentially have their own possessing jinns. I'll explain in a minute. By using this Ruqya diagnosis method, we can precisely target one specific ailment without affecting the other. In this case, the focus is on the sihr and the jinns linked to it, leaving the ayn and its associated jinns untouched. It's incredible that this level of specificity is possible. I need to work on that word because I don't like it. The Ruqya reactions exhibited by the patient are thus solely related to the sihr and the sihr jinns, as the Raqi's intention was specifically to diagnose only the sihr. So the rectangular box represents a victim. He is afflicted with sihr and ayn, and both of them have their own jinns. And in this case, same thing, the Ruqya is being carried by the intention to its intended target. It's not allowing the Ruqya to, it's not allowing the Ruqya to go rogue. It's not allowing it to do that. Right, bear with me a second. Yes, so that's what's happening here. And the Ruqya will only target this spiritual disease here. Even though there's jinn inside the ayn as well, the ayn affliction. Now, it's a separate issue when we discuss how it is possible for sihr jinns to enter through ayn. I want you to just pay attention to this. It's not a major thing anymore because our treatment method is one where we combine the intentions in a way which attacks all spiritual diseases in one go, because we have found with experience, especially this year on the Gregorian calendar, the 2024, is that these spiritual diseases are interlinked, and when you destroy them together, it's the quickest way. But sometimes what happens is when a sahir sends a jinn to possess a person, that jinn will wait until there's an opportunity that presents itself for it to enter the person. That person might start yawning without covering his mouth or her mouth, and it'll enter. Another easy way for the jinn to enter is through what we call ayn portals, which I'll teach in the subsequent videos when I discuss spiritual diseases. But ayn portals are essentially when a person has been hit with ayn, they are the damaged areas on his body or her body, and until treated, it allows the jinns to just enter through there. So when a sihr jinn enters through these ayn portals, when you perform a Ruqya diagnosis for ayn, those specific sihr jinns that enter through the ayn portal will respond to the Ruqya diagnosis. But it's fine. It's not really a big issue. It's not an interference with the diagnosis. It's easy to, as I explained in my previous diagram, it's not difficult to differentiate between which jinn we're dealing with. The only thing you want to take away from this is, if that is the case with you, you want to incorporate both the sihr and the ayn treatment intentions. Otherwise, it can sort of slow down the treatment. However, that's not something you should worry about really, because, as I explained, our current treatment methods combine all spiritual diseases in one go. Alhamdulillah. Now, what I'm going to discuss next with you is just mind-blowing. Subhanallah. This proves the accuracy and the consistency of the Ruqya reactions, and they further substantiate that these are from Allah. And I'm going to go through my first experience in advanced Ruqya diagnosis when dealing with sihr. It's quite funny because my Ustad, approximately about 18 months prior to me going through this situation, he taught me that it is possible to do advanced diagnosis to find out where the ta'weez is. The sihr ta'weez, which is connected to the victim. You can discover these things by doing a Ruqya diagnosis. You can find out who's done the sihr on you. And I remember thinking, subhanAllah, I've removed all the sihr that I had on me. If only I had sihr on me again, I could, do advanced Ruqya diagnosis, and it would be an amazing experience to actually do this. Because there's nothing like going through it yourself. A Raqi that has not gone through advanced Ruqya diagnosis will never appreciate it. I'd probably go as far as to say that they wouldn't really even be able to teach it effectively. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Now, this is a case I had that occurred with myself approximately 4 years ago. And it's where obviously previously I had used advanced diagnosis for finding who the Ain perpetrator is, which allowed me to obtain his ghusl water and bathe with it for shifa. Now, these diagrams depict a set of gifts given to my family, including food, clothing, and a doll for my daughter. Suspecting that some of these items were tainted with sihr, I proceeded to individually check if any were ta'weez or sihr objects, or even both. Now, you're probably wondering what is the difference between a ta'weez and a sihr object, so I'm going to clarify that before I move forward. A sihr is essentially a contract between two entities, whether humans and jinns or jinns among themselves. It connects to its victim like an umbilical cord, transmitting sihr energy to energize the possessing jinns and send harmful energy to the victim. This is not something unheard of. Raqis would agree that when sihr is done on the victim, there is something linking there is some unseen force that links the victim back to the ta'weez or to a network of jinns. The issue is they've just not developed a diagnosis method which is reliable to really confirm this. Anyways, destroying the ta'weez renders the sihr void. This was even the opinion of Ibn Qayyim, rahimahullah. He said when you destroy the ta'weez, it's the fastest way to destroy the sihr. SubhanAllah, we've actually found ways which are quicker. We destroy the ta'weez without even finding it, and that's something I'll be showing you soon, inshallah. Often, the sahir keeps this ta'weez to prevent it from being found and destroyed. For that reason, when you destroy it, it nullifies the whole sihr. So why would the magician give you the sihr ta'weez? However, in cases of white magic, where the intention behind the sihr is seemingly good, though still wrong, the perpetrator may give the ta'weez to the victim as a gift, ensuring it stays close to them. A sihr object is something designed to be touched by the intended victim, thereby linking them to the ta'weez. It can also be ingested. Sometimes the ta'weez and the sihr object are one and the same, as was the case illustrated in these diagrams, as in my case. So the sihr object can even be something disposable. So once they give you the food, it goes through your system, it's gone, but it's done its job. It's latched you onto the ta'weez. I will be showing you these elaborate sihr networks at some point, and how it works, so you don't have to worry about that, inshallah. But I want you to understand the difference between the ta'weez and the sihr object. The purpose of sharing these examples is twofold. First, to illustrate the remarkable capabilities of Ruqya diagnosis, and second, to demonstrate the accuracy and consistency of its results, which underscore the importance of employing the intention correctly to control Ruqya reactions that are granted by Allah. Returning to the diagrams, I was investigating whether the apricots given to us were linked to sihr. Let's have a look. I'll read this out first and then I'll explain it anyway with the diagrams on the screen, inshallah. With no Ruqya reactions observed, I proceeded to check the clothes. So I was given quite a few things. The three main things were apricots, some clothes for my daughter, my newborn daughter, as well as a doll. So when I've checked to see if there's a link between me and the apricots, there was no reaction. I then checked to see if there's a link between me and the clothes that were given to my daughter. I mean, just because they were given to my daughter, they could still have a sihr object on there. When we touch it, it latches us onto something. But there was no reactions. The results were coming back as negative. However, when I examined the doll given to us, the reactions were striking. Despite changing our focus to the other items repeatedly, we consistently reacted to the doll. This was true for all family members involved. Upon further examination of the doll, I experienced intense physical sensations, including severe nausea, buzzing in my upper stomach and heart area, and flashing white orbs. I thought I was having a heart attack, although my heart rate was fine. It was just a strange feeling I got just going near the ta'weez. And this is a lesson for us, for those people that think, they laugh and say, oh, how is this ta'weez dangerous? And they start playing with it, start throwing it about. It becomes dangerous for the one who's connected to it. So if you have a ta'weez in your hand which has got nothing to do with you, it's not really going to affect you. It's not going to affect you. It's not contagious. But if you start tampering with it, blowing ruqya on it and opening it up, breaking it up, the person who's connected to it can have a severe reaction, like an epileptic like reaction. And you, like I said, you will not appreciate this until you go through it. This was my first experience with it, and I'm telling you, I felt strange. I was going to pass out. I had to lie down for a few minutes to get my bearings, and then I came back for round two. But I was amazed at the intensity of the reactions when I started opening you up. Like, I was seeing, I mean, my wife at the time, we were both seeing white flashing orbs around the house even prior to even discovering the sihr. But during this whole process, the white flashing orbs started reappearing, and I remember thinking, oh, we can start flashing, are we? But I destroyed the whole thing, alhamdulillah. Now inside the doll, I discovered unusual knots and screws embedded. Once the doll was destroyed, we experienced immediate relief from the sihr, with our severe symptoms vanishing as quickly as they had appeared. Alhamdulillah. This process allowed me to precisely identify the item causing the affliction, determine who had performed the sihr, when it occurred, and the specific types of sihr involved. This detailed diagnosis enabled me to remove the sihr effectively. There's other reasons why we check these things, which I will go into further details at a later time, inshallah. We don't do trivial ruqya. I am not going to check what was the person eating whilst performing ruqya on me. What was their last meal? It's not important. When you start playing with ruqya is when the shaitan gets involved. The ruqya has two main conditions for it to work. As in, without these conditions, it's not going to work. Assuming the person is a pious Muslim. It has to be done with sincerity, and it has to be done correctly. If one of these two things are missing, that's when the shaitan will come in. You know. The accuracy of the ruqya diagnosis as illustrated by the consistent reactions to a single item underscores its value and efficacy. Unlike many Raqis who struggle to distinguish between sihr and ayn, this advanced technique offers profound insights into the spiritual ailments, allowing us to then eradicate them in the most appropriate and effective manner. May Allah guide us and keep our intentions sincere. Ameen. It's also important to note that destroying a ta'weez connected to sihr can provoke severe reactions, as mentioned above. So caution is essential to avoid activities that might jeopardize your safety. I mention this because I remember a few years ago in Manchester, some Raqis were going around graveyards finding ta'weez which had been placed there by magicians. And this is a graveyard of Muslims, unfortunately. And the Raqi was then destroying these ta'weez with the, he had a good intention. He was thinking, I'm going to destroy these ta'weez, and whoever this unsuspecting victim is, from wherever, will have the sihr move. And in a sense, it's there's goodness in this, but it's dangerous. What if that person is driving somewhere on the motorway, on the highway? They can have a severe reaction and cause a car crash. They can hurt themselves and hurt others in that situation. So I personally don't approve of this approach. Yeah, it's inshallah I will show you the advanced methods of treatments we have recently developed, where indirectly the Muslimin from all over the world will gain shifa. That is something that we learned this year, and I'm lost for word. You could probably hear me. I'm like, it's the kindness of Allah to even give us this method, this knowledge, is something we should forever be grateful for. Now, going up to this diagram, what I did was, I've done a Ruqya diagnosis. Now, keep in mind, I am not reading Ruqya on the actual apricots here, as the diagram may suggest. I just had to do it so you understood what I was doing here. I was trying to see if there's a link between me and the apricots. So I'm actually reading Ruqya on myself. So maybe the diagrams, I might change them, where I'll have to change them in a way which illustrates that the Ruqya is being read on the victim to see if they're connected to the apricots. But this was just my way of I've just done a quick diagram. Inshallah, I'll change this. But the point is, there were no reactions. There was no link between the apricots and myself. I've then gone on to see if there is any link between me and the clothes that were given to us as a gift. Again, the diagram, it should actually be illustrating the Ruqya being read on the victim, as in myself. But I've just done this just to illustrate what's going on here. And there's no link between me and these clothes. So I'm thinking, okay, that's interesting. Then I've gone on to the last thing that was given to us, as in the main thing, and that's the doll that was given to my daughter. And what's happened here is, I've read Ruqya on myself, and that's why I want to clarify this. I've read the Ruqya on myself, and I'm getting strong reactions. Like really strong reactions, movements. I'm even seeing stuff in my eyelids, like colours. And upon further investigation, whilst doing the Ruqya diagnosis, I found that this doll was both a sihr ta'weez and a sihr object. So whoever touched it, that it was intended for, it was latching them onto it. And it also means that because it's a ta'weez, by simply destroying it, give us all relief. And I'll never forget this, because for months since getting this doll, I have this heaviness on my shoulders. And I'm someone, alhamdulillah, thumma alhamdulillah, I'm not someone I don't get sad, I don't get depressed, and I don't get bored. My baseline normal is a place of happiness. However, when you have sihr on you, it becomes the opposite. You can have every reason to be happy, however you get pulled towards a place of sadness and boredom even, which then would probably lead you to sins. But what I remember is the day I destroyed this doll, it felt as though something was lifted from me. And all of this was actually confirmed via a dream as well, alhamdulillah. And what's interesting is, I must have switched my intention at least 10 times to various objects in the house, including the ones I've mentioned here. And I was consistently reacting to the doll. So when I was coming back to the doll, I was only reacting to it. And as I mentioned, when I opened it up afterwards. it became abundantly clear that this was given to us with malicious intent. To clarify, I mean, the person who gave us a doll was not the one who did the sihr on us. Rather, they had given this doll to someone else to give to us, if you know what I mean. Like, as in, they were coming back to this country, so this relative had given it to them, and then they had, in that time, short span of time, they had tampered with the doll before giving it back to us. Before giving it to us. That's what had happened. Now, what's interesting is, and I want you to pay attention to this next bit. If, for argument's sake, whilst this doll was connected to me, if someone was to decide to hide it from me, whether it was a practical joke, whether it was for whatever reason, I'll find it. Even if it was misplaced in the house whilst the house was being cleaned, I'll find it without even looking for it. Meaning, I could simply perform a Ruqya diagnosis and I will know exactly where this doll is. You can hide it inside the house, you can hide it outside the house, and the way we do this is, without going into too much detail, we use the recitation of the Quran along with the intention and the Ruqya reactions, and with this we narrow it down to its destination, to its location. And I've had patients finding ta'weez in the most obscure of places. Subhanallah. Now, diagram 9 is interesting as well, where the patient employed advanced Ruqya diagnosis to pinpoint the location of a sihr ta'weez, which also functioned as a sihr object within his attic. So it's similar to my situation. However, this was hidden from him. Despite being initially uncertain of the precise nature of this connection, his meticulous diagnosis guided him to the attic. There he uncovered the sihr ta'weez, revealed to be an amulet as depicted in diagram 9. So something like this, just a standard amulet. But what's happened here is, this individual has performed a Ruqya diagnosis for sihr. He's reacted. And when he's done advanced Ruqya diagnosis to find the location of the ta'weez, the results were coming back as it being somewhere in the house. Then he had to do further Ruqya diagnosis to confirm the location. And each time the results were coming back as exactly the same. So there was nothing on the lower floor in the house. There's nothing in the top 2 rooms. However, he's still reacting to it being in the house. So this kind of confused him, like, where can it be? However, when he checked further, he found that the ta'weez was sitting in an unused attic, hidden away somewhere in the corner. And he would consistently get the same result. Now, this is crucial. The results are accurate and they are consistent every single time. And again, if he's not reading Ruqya on the ta'weez, he's reading Ruqya on this link between him and the ta'weez. You know, that's what's happening here. And like I said in my last example, if someone was to hide this ta'weez, which whilst it's still connected to him and it's live, whether it's deliberately hidden or just misplaced whilst things were being tidied or cleaned out, this brother or sister will find that ta'weez with ease. We've had patients find things in locations which are like in another city or another town, even another country. Yeah, and we find the precise location. We've had one brother, he was able to locate the ta'weez buried somewhere using Google Maps. Yeah, it's pretty interesting how this works. And like I said, the results speak for themselves. And this is further proof that this is all from Allah. We're not using jinns here. And in my previous chapter, I've discussed how using the intention like this is not a bid'ah. There's nothing wrong with it. Alhamdulillah. Now here are some thought-provoking questions. If this Ruqya diagnosis were not divinely inspired or lacked accuracy, how could the patient have precisely located the ta'weez in an area of the house he seldom visits? Remarkably, the Ruqya diagnosis is so precise that even if this amulet were to be hidden again or inadvertently misplaced while still active and connected to the victim, the patient would still be able to find it effortlessly through Ruqya diagnosis. This method allows the patient to locate the ta'weez connected to them via an external sihr network without extensive searching and without asking the jinns. Sometimes these Raqis who foolishly accept information from possessing jinns will be sent on a long mission in trying to find these ta'weez, and then when they do end up in that location, they find the jinn was lying all along. So yeah, guys, this is that's enough for today's session. I will be changing these diagrams before I give these out to my students, inshallah. I'm going to figure out a better way to illustrate this, inshallah. Yeah, but for now, inshallah, that's enough. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.